Rich Western nations have long claimed it is their goal to assist developing countries with the investment of money and resources to help alleviate poverty. Most of those nations have departments dedicated to allocating and managing money for international or foreign aid efforts. The UK alone boasts a budget of more than £12 billion for foreign aid in 2016, as reported in this BBC article. It reports, the Department for International Development is an arm of government with spending power that is likely to keep growing. The UK has passed a bill that enshrines in law its commitment to spend 0.7% of the country's gross national income on aid every year. Globally, billions of dollars are spent each year on development efforts, but only a small fraction of that aid money is transferred directly to the poor country for it to manage and spend themselves. Less than 6% of all the aid money spent in 2014, as shown here in this LA Review of Books article. Most of the aid money is spent through NGOs, multilateral organisations like the UN, and private contractors, and it means big business. Billions of dollars each year are spent buying goods and services, everything from drugs to consultancy. For a long time, aid has been officially tied in some donor countries. This means contracts go to companies from the rich country providing the aid. This 2012 Guardian article, US Food Aid Program Criticised as Corporate Welfare for Grain Giants, explains that legislation passed in the 1950s dictates how US food aid to foreign countries operates, with the vast majority of it tied so that it must be purchased, processed, and shipped by American companies, even if there are cheaper alternatives. Though many of the richest donors have been officially committed to untie their aid contribution, as this Guardian article states, much of this money is boomerang aid, funds that flow to developing countries, only on the books, and may never leave the donor countries. All UK aid is officially untied since 2011. However, it appears that British companies still win the majority of this business. This Guardian article from 2012, UK aid money, the key datasets you need to know, notes that of nearly 120 major contracts and procurement agreements, together worth almost £750 million, published on the government's contracts portal since January 2011, only 9 include non-UK firms among the grantees. An Indian company, Cran Consulting, is the only firm from a developing country on the list to win a full contract. The visibility and power of large corporations in international aid and development efforts has taken on even larger proportions over the years, particularly since the 2008 global financial crisis, because there is less government spending on aid and lower donations to NGOs. The US government's leading aid agency, USAID, is partnering with corporate giant Walmart, as shown in this USAID blog, What do Walmart and USAID have in common? This is an interesting question considering that USAID's mission is to end global poverty and enable democratic societies to realize their potential. On the other hand, Walmart is the world's largest company by revenue according to Fortune Global 500 list from 2011. Walmart have been criticized for paying what The Guardian called poverty pay to its employees in the US, meaning that they can't even afford to buy their lunch. However, on their partnership, the USAID blog notes, whether it's our initiative to train 1 million farmers or to double our sourcing from women-owned businesses, the goal is to help farmers and women access modern supply chains, increase their income, and in turn contribute to the economic development of their communities. Today, if you're a company, there's a growing menu of ways for you to benefit from aid and global development efforts. And USAID and Walmart are not alone. Other NGOs to partner with corporate giants include Oxfam, a UK charity fighting poverty, and multinational consumer goods company Unilever, and Save the Children and GlaxoSmithKline. This 2012 Guardian article, More NGOs Finding Fruitful Collaborations with the Private Sector, reports that Oxfam and Unilever have been working together since 2010. It quotes then CEO of Oxfam, Dame Barbara Stocking, saying, "The big multinationals know probably more than anybody that we work in a global world. They see the totality of the world, of markets, and actually it works best for poor people if they do their core business in a way that is positively pro-poor." Justin Forsyth, former chief executive of Save the Children UK, an NGO promoting children's rights in developing countries, appeared in a glossy spread of the Financial Times How to Spend It section in November 2014. Forsyth, ex-advisor to former British Prime Ministers Tony Blair and Gordon Brown, was widely credited with ushering in a new wave of grand partnerships with corporations. He also increased the charity's income by £50 million per year since 2010. A section of the website for Save the Children UK beckons corporations to work with us with a menu of options from straightforward financial donations to cause-related marketing. Their website continues, associating your brand with the world's leading independent organisation for children could be really beneficial for your business and stakeholders. Their relationship with GlaxoSmithKline was announced in May 2013. It was an unprecedented £15 million partnership with the pharmaceutical multinational that produces drugs, vaccines and consumer healthcare products with a revenue of several $billion. The collaboration between Save the Children and GlaxoSmithKline was surprising, as reported in this Guardian article, after the NGO was among the development organisations lambasting GlaxoSmithKline for its high price tags on HIV drugs for the developing world. However, the New Internationalist magazine, in their article, The Company They Keep, reports that corporate funding of international NGOs is nothing new. Some voices have raised concern. In her Guardian article, Deborah Doan states that most NGOs will continue to take big corporate cash while holding their critical tongues of dissent. She continues to raise the question if relationships with the private sector rendered NGOs' roles as advocate, watchdog and change agent marginalised and ineffective. On a section of The Guardian's website, an expert panel of representatives from business and NGOs make the case for getting involved in development. Alan Pamba, Vice President for GSK in East Africa, says, "The role of the private sector goes beyond bolt-on philanthropic activities. It can be embedded in everyday business. This demands different business models. In GSK's case, developing medicines and vaccines and making sure they are accessible is the contribution we can make." Tara Nathan, Executive Director for International Development at MasterCard, commented in the same section, "Profitability is sustainability. Aid is temporary. The 2 + 2 = 5 happens when the private sector is tapped to utilise our full complement of assets. Much of the official narrative of why companies are increasingly involved in aid presumes that we have forgotten the context of decades of deregulation and failed attempts to hold transnational corporations to account for their actions. Instead of laws limiting the power of transnational corporations, we have voluntary initiatives and corporate social responsibility projects." The article in the LA Review of Books quotes Nuria Molina, Director of Policy at the UK NGO ActionAid, saying that the private sector increasingly, and as a result of the neoliberal paradigm, operates in a ruleless world, so corporate social responsibility is seen as a way to make up for this lack of rules and to combat perceptions that they are really ruthless. As Ranja Sengupta, senior researcher at the Third World Network, has noted in the Guardian comment section, if the big private sector entities will pay taxes honestly, transfer technology and allow policy space for developing countries to pursue development objectives, development issues will be solved to a large extent. For countries that have a rush of aid agencies coming to their shores very quickly, the effect can actually be extremely negative. Myanmar has been a hotspot, particularly since 2011, after the implementation of political reforms. As experts Lex Rieffel of Brookings Institution and James Fox, a former US aid senior economist, note in this story the rush for the entrances in Myanmar. Every respectable aid agency and international NGO in the world is planning to initiate or expand operations in Myanmar. The best and the brightest in these organizations are pushing to be posted in Yangon or to manage the Myanmar account. In a column published on the Irrawaddy website in 2014, RAMESH SHRESTHA, former UNICEF country representative to Myanmar, warned that sustainability is lacking because these organizations' efforts are ignoring national systems and networks, with only a few exceptions. Little NGO aid has gone towards strengthening public institutions or building human resources therein. In Haiti, the disaster relief response to the earthquake is often quoted as another example of mismanaged foreign aid attempts. An article in The Conversation refers to a report that claimed that in the aftermath of the earthquake in 2010, the American Red Cross had only managed to convert donations of $500 million into 6 permanent housing units, stating that problems with land tenure, red tape, administrative costs, language barriers, utilities, and government and contractual transparency all but thwarted NGO efforts to improve the situation. The Guardian reported this as disaster capitalism making a killing out of catastrophe. There is no global regulatory system for transnational corporations involved in the international aid industry. Instead, companies continue to lobby governments to influence public policy and protect their own interests, and there is no one to monitor and hold the companies to account whether these pledges actually translate into any substantial change for poor communities. There is a myth of corporate-led global development, that companies have seen the light and become more progressive and therefore should be embraced as partners. The fact that this embrace of corporations in aid and development has happened in the wake of the global financial crisis and amid increasing mainstream questioning of deregulated capitalism is astonishing. It is a grand gift of power, good for profits but delivering questionable short-term benefits for the poor and worrying long-term impacts for the world. It is a many-sided hall of mirrors that is meant to blind good-willed people and the aid agencies they work with to the reality of unchecked corporate power.